Good morning, everyone. Welcome to xMatters Demo Days. Thank you for joining us. As a customer success manager here at xMatters, I'm excited today to be talking to one of the customers that we work with, Dun Bradstreet. You'll hear about how they're achieving success with xMatters. We have the chat area open for you to post comments or questions throughout today's webinar. This session is intended for xMatters customers or prospective customers. It is subject to all published fair use policies and other terms and conditions. If you'd like more information, you can find it at xmatters.com/policy. I'm your host, Zoe Na, and joining me from DNB is Site Reliability Engineer, Nick Romanelli. Nick joined DNB last year, having previously worked in the financial services industry. DNB is a leading global provider of business decision data and analytics, enabling companies around the world accelerate revenue, lower cost, mitigate risk, and transform their business. Nick, welcome and thanks for joining us today. Let's start with the challenges the business was facing. You came into Dun Bradstreet, who was already using xMatters. Can you describe what pain and challenge drove the initiative to build out your xMatters instance even further?
Yeah, sure. After I landed, one of the areas of focus, one of the things I was asked to look at was how we could continue to improve our incident management practices. Obviously reducing our mean time to engagement. Overall, how do we reduce our mean time to resolution? So I started looking at what we already had sort of in our arsenal, what we were doing, and saw that xMatters was a key component of that.
In our initial days working together, you mentioned you were a PagerDuty fan prior to joining Dun Bradstreet. What was your first impression of xMatters and how did you find your onboarding experience?
So I was pretty skeptical about xMatters, right? Obviously, there's a lot of different platforms in this space, and I wasn't quite clear when I got here, what was its capabilities, what really set it apart. So I did like the xMatters online training. That was helpful to bootstrap me into the environment. But then I really didn't get it until I looked at xMatters to solve one of the first problems that I saw. So our current major incident management engagement practices were a little disjointed. We use Microsoft Teams heavily here at DNB. Obviously, that was a big part of it. Obviously, working with our ITSM system, using xMatters to engage resources. And so kind of pulling all those three things together was a very manual, laborious process. And it added actually quite a bit of time to actually resolving the incidents when they occurred. So when I looked at the process end to end, my goal was to find a workflow tool that I could leverage that would streamline all these things together. So obviously, as I got a little bit more familiar with xMatters, I realized that it was actually pretty well positioned to deliver what we needed. And that's where, xMatter workflows and some of the built-in integrations really came in handy. So xMatters had recently released the Microsoft Teams integration, as well as the ability to create custom workflow steps. So bringing those things together, combined with some of the other built-in functionality, I was able to streamline our major incident management process, our engagement and notification practices, and essentially quickly create the collaboration resources, communicate out to get the resources, the technical resources we need engaged, as well as communicate out to our business and just technology stakeholders to make them aware more broadly that an incident was occurring.
Speaking on custom workflow steps, I know you added a Bitly step to your workflow. Could you walk us through how you created it?
Sure. So those of you that aren't familiar with Bitly, Bitly is a URL shortening service. So those of you that also use Teams, you may know or may not know that when you create a new Teams meeting, that URL to join the meeting is actually quite large. So obviously using xMatters, we're communicating through all forms, right? We're communicating email, we're sending SMS. And so obviously if you were sending some large link in SMS, it's just doomed for failure, right? I mean, it's going to get broken up, maybe it won't go all the way through. So the goal was, well, if we want to send the Teams link into an SMS, we need to shorten it. How are we going to do that? So that's where the custom workflow step came into play. So when you're building a workflow in xMatters, you obviously have the built-in integrations. You have the steps that are available in the xMatters lab, which are really helpful. But then you can create a custom workflow step. So I was looking at the documentation, and what I found was a custom workflow step in xMatters is essentially JavaScript. I'm no super JavaScript expert, but I know enough to get around. And between the documentation and the template that xMatters provides, it made it really simple to build a custom workflow step, which is essentially written in JavaScript, to consume an external API. So what I was able to do was stitch together the xMatters Microsoft Teams integration for creating a meeting, send that into the bit.ly custom workflow step to take that long URL, call the bit.ly API, provide back a shortened API, a shortened URL, and then send that downstream to the event step, where it would then communicate out that meeting link, but now with the short bit.ly URL. So, again, with the documentation, the fact that the base custom step provided that template and essentially how to call and manage the response of an external API made it extremely beneficial in really, again, further streamlining and making that process a more robust process.
Nick, you're sounding like a real expert now. Once you built out your workflow, how did the rollout go? Were there any stumbling blocks? Did it take long?
So actually, the hardest part we had was because we'd already been using xMatters. Our major incident process had sort of been already in place for some time. So teams were used to how they were being engaged with xMatters, how we were collaborating in teams. So I would say the hardest part we had was, changing hearts and minds. As we evolved our process, making sure our user community was aware, keeping them informed on how the major incident process would work now. I would say from a technical implementation perspective, it probably only took us about a week once to really iron out the implementation details. And that was actually with a lot of your help and xMatters support help, and really try to figure out what we needed to do. And then probably about another 2 weeks for us to merge it into our major incident management process.
Mm-hmm. Speaking on specific processes you have at Dun Bradstreet, how is xMatters helping out with processes outside of the typical incident management use case?
Sure. So obviously that was kind of my first foray into really digging in with xMatters and kind of building that workflow. And then I was saying, well, what else can we make this do? Right. And obviously xMatters has a ton of built-in integrations. One of the platforms we use here at Dun Bradstreet for production management, we leverage New Relic. Right, like so New Relic is a full-blown APM production management tool for that we use for monitoring our critical applications. So part of that is obviously if you're monitoring something, you want to be alerted on it. So xMatters and New Relic, they work quite well together. You can dispatch an xMatters alert, a New Relic alert to your team in xMatters. But to do that requires creating requires you to create both a integration in xMatters as well as what's called a notification channel in New Relic. So what we actually did was built an integration between the two to sync that ability and allow teams to self-service alerts to their group.
And what about reaction from other teams with the business? Is there an appetite for xMatters?
Yeah, so between building the major incident management workflow, building our new xMatters to New Relic integration, we then demoed all that work that we were doing during a lunch and learn session that we run here inside technology. Because obviously teams were used to seeing xMatters, they knew it was the thing that called them at 2 a.m. But people didn't know how powerful it was. So when we sort of showed them the secret sauce, what was behind the curtain, we actually drummed up a lot of interest for the different production management teams here and the different SRE teams in building their own integrations with xMatters to support their own processes.
Mm-hmm. That's very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing all the Dun Bradstreet teams leverage xMatters. Going back to your New Relic integration, I know you expanded from the out-of-the-box integration. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so out of the box, you can go into the New Relic, the xMatters API, and you can spin up a new Relic integration. Similarly, you can then go to New Relic, and you can, in the UI, create a new notification channel, linking it to your xMatters integration. But we have a lot of production management teams here, and obviously we're using these tools enterprise-wide, so we do follow a little bit of RBAC access control. So not everyone has the ability to set those things up. So what we actually did was leveraging the API layers of both products. We actually were able to create these configurations and manage them. So what we've done is using the xMatters API, query it first and say, okay, what are all the groups we have in xMatters? And now, do we have New Relic integrations created for all of those groups? And if we didn't, then we would use the xMatters API, and we would say, okay, let's create those New Relic integrations. Then similarly, we would go to the New Relic platform. We would query its API and say, what are all the xMatters notification channels that exist? And we would then do the audit and say, okay, well, we just created these 10 new xMatters New Relic integrations. Let's create the equivalent New Relic notification channel for those xMatters groups. We then, rolled this out. We deployed it into Lambda. It runs every 20 minutes. So it keeps these environments now in sync. And also, if we end up removing or renaming a group in xMatters, it keeps the information in New Relic updated. So now we have this running in the background. So now if you're a production management team and you go into New Relic and you're configuring new alerts, when you go to then configure that alert and you want to send that alert to your, to your on-call, you have in your dropdown, you now see notification channels, and you can see Nick's support group, and you can choose that. Whereas previously, that required a team to open a ticket, working with the enterprise monitoring team to say, oh, hey, I need this notification channel created, and it's a different team that looked after xMatters, and so it was a lot of coordination and a lot of time lost. So now we have that sort of available to teams, and not something they have to think about, and they're able to leverage sort of both platforms pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a game changer for your teams to be able to self-service their needs with the two-way integration. Now, speaking on the discussions you had with our xMatters product team, has that been helpful for your long-term goals?
Absolutely. I mean, we're always trying to improve how we're working, right? As an SRE, your uptime is critical, your ability to respond when there's an incident. And so obviously we have all our different processes that we have in place, and nothing's ever good enough, right? We always have to be continually improving. So as I kind of assess where we are in our maturity level, in our maturity journey, right? Knowing where xMatters is going with the platform really helps me align what me and my team are working on and leveraging xMatters kind of the best of its ability.
Mm-hmm. What on the roadmap that excites you most?
So obviously we have many systems here at D&B. We're bringing in all sorts of data together. We have a lot of interdependencies. And I think what I'm really interested in seeing, xMatters continue to build out or release is the services and the service mapping. Because when we get into an incident situation and we need to really make sure we're bringing the right resources to bear so we understand the impact of what's happening, being able to have those services, map those services together, link those to our resolving team, I think is going to be a huge win in our ability to, as we establish an incident bridge, as we establish impacted stakeholders, being able to communicate out, quickly and effectively is going to be huge for us.
Yes, I'm actually also looking forward to the service catalog feature. Let's talk about some of the other benefits since you've enhanced your xMatters workflows. Have you seen any benefits to things like your MTTR?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I said, when we first started, we were losing, I would probably say, 15 minutes in just the overhead, the administrative overhead of spinning up an incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've reduced that now to just a few clicks, right? So it's been huge there, but more so than just the MTTR and the metric. I'm really excited about how we've opened people's eyes to what xMatters can do. And we had that lunch and learn way back when, and teams really got their gears turning in terms of, wow, we actually do have something here that we can use to tackle our different challenges, remove our toil, etc. So I'm really excited about how my team's going to help our other production management SRE teams here at D&B to solve their own challenges.
You've spoken very highly of xMatters, which we always appreciate, but we love hearing your feedback. So what's one thing you wish you could do that we don't, or one thing you wish we could change?
Sure. So our incident management practice, we curate when the incidents occur, we curate the information in terms of impact, severity, et cetera. And we put that together for our senior leadership, for the rest of the technology organization. And it's a very custom format and very specific information. So it would be really great to see the incident portion of xMatters be improved to allow us the flexibility to capture the details that we need, and as well as customize the communication going out, right? And that would, again, be one more level up in our ability to streamline our whole process.
Yes, that would be a great addition. We really appreciate your continued partnership and your enthusiasm. As we wind down our chat, could you summarize how xMatters contributes to your business goals or mission?
Yeah, really what I've seen is xMatters has really become sort of the Swiss Army knife for me. We've used it to tackle our incident management workflow. We've used it to help us with our event and alert management. And it's really just proving to be just extremely useful kind of across, across the production management landscape. So, again, it's just been huge in allowing us to sort of tackle all the different problems we've thrown at it. And just, I'm glad it was here when I got here.
Oh, that's exciting. I look forward to continuing to help you and your team realize that success. And as we bring this session to a close, let's recap on some of the benefits that Dun Bradstreet have realized with xMatters. A reduction in ticket requests from teams to receive alerting data through streamlined workflow in xMatters. More self-service for teams, allowing them to quickly and easily set up alerting. Efficiencies with major incident management engagement through automating external processes. And lastly, the ability to use out-of-the-box integrations and custom steps in Harmony through Flow Designer. All these achieved with functionality available as standard across all tiers of the xMatters platform. Now we have the time to take a few questions from the audience. So for you, Nick, question. Due to COVID-19 and new ways of hybrid working model, do you have to, or what changes have you made in your workflow as staff are based remotely and working possibly with different work hours?
Sure. So so from a workflow perspective and our incident management perspective, it wasn't really anything we had to change, but what we did have to do is sort of retrain folks on and making better use of the on-call and schedule functionality in xMatters. I think people were sort of taking advantage of the fact that things were pretty static way back when, and now with people putting in different shifts, leveraging people out of region, etc. People sort of had to actually go in and start using the xMatters schedule to its fullest potential to ensure that when resources were needed, they were reaching out to the right resources. And because when it first started, people wasn't set up correctly, right? But people hadn't really realized that until they really needed to push and pull on those schedules.
Another question is, does it take much time administrating the xMatters platform?
No, like doing things like managing your devices, your schedule, etc. That's pretty easy. That's table stakes. But now that I've discovered Flow Designer, I end up finding myself squirreling my afternoons away in the tool, trying to figure out, what other custom workflow step can I have? What other integrations are posted on the xMatters Lab GitHub, right? And I find myself just trying to tweak and play and see what else I can make the platform do.
You become a xMatters tinker, as we say. A personal question for me, since you mentioned how addictive xMatters Flow Designer has become, what would you say to any PagerDuty fans out there?
So for us, xMatters has definitely evolved past just simple on-call, alert routing management, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the workflow capabilities, I think are huge, and they're so flexible, and it just really allows us to use xMatters to meet, sort of any need. And I think anybody that's looking to either bring together, different parts of their production management stack or looking to kind of streamline those processes really need to, look at xMatters.
Thank you, Nick, for sharing your insight. That's all the questions we have for today. Um, I would also like to say a special thank you to Danny and Juliet at Dun Bradstreet. We couldn't have this opportunity without you two. If you like what you saw today, you can try it yourself with xMatters free. Sign up today by going to xmatters.com/signup. Or if you'd like to request a personal demo from your one of our experts, you can do so at xmatters.com/demo. If you found this webinar interesting, we have more webinars scheduled every month. Sign up on our Demo Days webpage. You can also track us down online. Follow your channel of choice, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where we share even more and would love to connect with you. Nick, thank you once again for your time today and sharing your success with our audience. And to our guests, thank you for joining us. This concludes today's Demo Days event. Have a wonderful day.